The man who got the name changed himself. We have him. Bomani Jones wore a T-shirt on Mike and Mike a few years back, and let's be honest, that's the only reason why we got here. Thanks, Bomani. Civil rights warrior.
Yeah.
Thank you, Bomani.
Yeah. Like, I have said this repeatedly, and I do think it bears note, man. People that made this happen are the native people, the activists that have been on the ground grinding on this for a very, very long time, right? I wore a T-shirt on television one time. That ain't nearly the same thing, right? But this is what I think happened, Dan. When it happened with Washington, to me, it's very similar to what happened with the change of the state flag in the state of Mississippi. Everything was going on around George Floyd, and there was this big swirl of activity around it. But there was no real push at that time to make Washington change that name. There was no real push at that time to make Mississippi change their flag. Somewhere along the way, money on various levels said, now's the time for us to go ahead and do this before somebody does it for us. And then they went ahead and do that. Cleveland seemed like they had been stepping in this direction for a while as they had de-emphasized that abominable caricature that they had been using all of those years. They had backed away from it, and now they're in a position that I think is advantageous to them, that's similar to where Washington was and that's similar to where the state of Mississippi was. They could do it without it looking like somebody made them do it, because the biggest objection that I think that most people have to changing these names is not the names themselves. They don't really give a damn about these names. Like the Washington team swore up and down they could never change it because people would be so mad. They ain't even got no damn name and don't nobody care about that fact, right? Like that isn't the issue. What white folks don't like is people telling them what to do. And once it feels like somebody's telling the nearest white man what to do, that's when people buck up. This one's going to wind up going through because that's not the way that it looks. So if the Chiefs at any point or the Braves at any point decide, hey, this is what we want to do, they'll be able to do it quietly and get it done. The difference is people haven't been knocking on their doors the way they had in Washington and the way in Cleveland. It ain't the same push behind them to try to make them change that name. They don't want to change it. They've come out and clearly said, no, we think it's cool. We want to keep it. We've talked to some native people, like that kind of stuff. I don't even know who the hell they wound up talking to, but that's the way they played it. So until they're in a place where they want to and they can look like they're doing it because they want to, they're going to wind up keeping those names. And we as a public are going to have to decide if we deem this appropriate.